All right, great. So thank you everyone for coming. Couple of new faces, but hardly any. So that's good. I like that. So I'm Ed Katz, and I run Katnip Marketing during the day, and I have Katz Reviews on Facebook, and I also am an instructor at Florida Atlantic University. Yeah, thank you. And I'll be doing One Battle After Another at the Boca Raton, Florida Atlantic campus on October 21st, and at the Jupiter campus on November 18th. And then in January, I'm going to be doing classic films of the 60s and 70s, a 4-week course, 4 Fridays in January.
And you get paid.
And I get paid, which is nice. Yes, exactly. All right, so tonight we're discussing Air. Oh, we got one more. Oh, Ann and Fred are coming. Okay, good. I hate it when the mouse doesn't. So,
Ann and Fred, is that what you said?
yeah, okay. All right, good. So we're going to discuss Air tonight. And who had never seen it before? Oh. Okay, about half had never seen it before. Okay. And did you guys like it? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Did anyone not like it? Got one. No. Was anyone so-so on it in the middle? No? Okay. Okay. All right, good. All right. Well, we'll discuss the dissenter shortly. That's fine. That's fine. So I thought the movie was pretty well done. There's one issue that's been kind of controversial about not really showing Michael Jordan in it, which was a conscious decision, and we'll discuss Ben Affleck's choice of doing that because he directed the movie, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll discuss that. And did you know the story of how Nike signed Michael Jordan before you saw this?
No, sort of.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. So the film has a 93% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes out of over 340 reviews. And the consensus there is a fact-based drama that no one will dunk on. Using a little basketball reference. Yeah. Air aims to dramatize events that changed the sports world forever and hits almost nothing but net, which is a good thing. Okay. Let's see, the cinema score gave it an A with a 93% positive, 83% definite recommend, which is very high. The budget was between $70 and $90 million. The box office was $90 million worldwide. Wow. So that's not as great on such a high budget film, but it was meant to be an Amazon film. So for them to basically pretty much recoup the budget at the attendees, in the actual theaters, that's a good thing. So it ends up being considered a success from that standpoint. $52.5 million was domestic box office and about 37.5 foreign. Yes.
The worldwide. How much was it seen there?
That was the worldwide box office, and 52.5 was domestic. So, yeah, I mean, Michael Jordan is pretty much known worldwide, so I think that was a good thing in their favor for getting a foreign box office. It premiered in 2023 at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin. The theatrical release was in April, just a few weeks later. And it was Amazon Studios' first exclusive theatrical release since the 2019 film Late Night, which is one we may want to have a discussion on at some point. It was kind of a cool movie. I think it was Emma Thompson was the lead in it, but it came only, so it premiered in the theaters April 5th, May 12th, it was on Amazon. So it had a really short theatrical window. So to do 90 million, in 5 weeks, that's pretty darn good. Okay. It had 2 nominations at the Golden Globe Awards, including Best Motion Picture for the musical and comedy category. And it had a Best Actor nomination for Matt Damon. At the Critics' Choice Movie Awards, it was nominated for Best Acting Ensemble and Best Original Screenplay. And I'll talk about the guy who wrote the screenplay because there's a kind of interesting story on that too. Viola Davis received multiple Regional Critics Association nominations for supporting actress playing Michael Jordan's mother. The film won the Gotham Awards inaugural Visionary Icon Award and the Heartland Film Truly Moving Picture. All right, so Ben Affleck was born in 1972, raised in Cambridge, and his story begins one of the most famous friendships in Hollywood. Him and Matt Damon essentially grew up together. And they became childhood friends and career friends as well. So Affleck got his start as a child actor in a Burger King commercial, and then he was in a PBS educational series back in the mid-'80s. He also appeared as a teenager in, did anyone see Dazed and Confused, Richard Linklater movie? It's sort of like American Graffiti, but much darker. But it was funny, but it was darker. And it was set later, like in the 80s. So they had several future stars in it, and he was one of them. He's been in several Kevin Smith comedies, which are kind of quirky, independent movies. You may know some of them. Mallrats, Chasing Amy. Chasing Amy was a very good one. Dogma, which was good but kind of weird. And later he did Jersey Girl. And he became part of Smith's regular acting troupe. He attended University of Vermont for one semester because he dropped out because he fractured his hip playing intramural basketball and dropped out. He briefly went to Occidental in LA and then didn't go to the rest of college. So the film that changed everything in 1997 was the two of them as struggling actors in their mid-20s. They wrote and starred in, anyone know it?
Good Will Hunting.
Right, Good Will Hunting, very good, yes. Good Will Hunting.
Oh.
Yep. Story of a brilliant but troubled Boston math savant. It earned 9 Oscar nominations. Affleck and Damon won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Affleck was 25 at the time and became among the youngest people ever to win in that category. The film also won Robin Williams the Best Supporting Actor Oscar. From that, Affleck became a leading man in big budget films, Armageddon, Shakespeare in Love, Best Picture winner, Pearl Harbor, and Daredevil, opposite his future wife, Jennifer Garner. He had a well-documented career slump in the mid-2000s, and then he came back with Hollywoodland in 2006. He made his directorial debut in 2007 with Gone Baby Gone, a Boston crime drama that got some good reviews, won the National Board of Review Award for Best Directorial Debut. And then he followed it with The Town, another Boston crime movie, also with Matt Damon. Did you guys see The Town? Good crime movie. Worth checking out. But his big triumph, anyone know what this was? His big triumph as a director? Argo. Argo.
That was very good.
Very good.
That was a film based on kind of a true story of the hostage rescue attempt that American did using, pretending they were making a film. And to use that to get in and get the
It's the Iranians.
yeah.
Maybe.
So Argo won the Golden Globe for Best Director and the Academy Award for Best Picture. Notably, he himself was not nominated for Best Director, which was considered a well-publicized Oscar snub. In 2022, Damon and Affleck launched a new production company called Artists Equity. And if you saw the very beginning of the movie, they show Artists Equity. And it had funding from a capital funding firm, and Air was the first release. And it was kind of a unique model. It gives above the line talent, the actors and directors, equity stakes in the profit of the film. And Air was Affleck's return to the director's chair after a stretch focused on acting, and reunited him with the cinematographer Robert Richardson and editor William Goldenberg, both of whom worked with him on Argo, which was about a decade before this one. So the film it's called A Love Letter to 1984, although, if I remember right, the very first song you hear, even before you see much of anything, you're hearing from big MTV song, Dire Straits, Money for Nothing. Doesn't ring a bell with some of you, but that was how the movie opened. You're hearing that song, and that was actually in 1985, but close enough. So they kind of immerse you in the 80s with the beginning montage of sound and commercials. The Where's the Beef Lady from Wendy's, and other 80s songs from MTV. So it really gets you right into the 80s, so you get the sense of the period. So the film did not have a large music budget, and the guy who was the music supervisor had to personally convince artists and publishers to grant rights based on the strength of the story. The final film contains 23 licensed, they call them needle drop songs, alongside 18 original score cues. So that's kind of a heavy reliance on period music rather than traditional orchestra score. So it gave the film the feel of kind of hanging out in the 80s as much as anything. All right, I won't get into that. The Affleck's direction favors long conversational takes and a warm, naturalistic look rather than flashy visual tricks, putting the focus squarely on the actors' interplay, which makes sense for this kind of movie because it's a lot about the dialogue and their interactions. And this was the reunion of Affleck and Damon on screen together for the first time since The Last Duel, if anyone saw that. Big budget film, honestly, not great. It was sort of okay. And before that, Dogma, way back in 1999. So as far as the Michael Jordan thing, this was one of the most talked about choices. Michael Jordan himself is never shown speaking on camera. His face is glimpsed only briefly, and usually from the side or from the back. This was deliberate. It was the film. The family wanted to bet on Jordan's greatness, but they didn't want to make Jordan biopic. So Affleck said keeping him as almost mythic, an unseen presence, heightened the stakes. The audience is meant to hold Jordan in the same reverence and uncertainty that Nike did in 1984 before anyone knew what he would ultimately become. So as far as the critics' opinions about this particular approach, the Chicago Sun-Times' Richard Roper, who gave it 4 out of 4 stars, praised Affleck's direction, calling it sure-handed, period piece, perfect direction, combined with a crackling good screenplay. And I'm about to tell you about the screenwriter. Variety favorably compared the film's spirit to Jerry Maguire, calling it a story about how the third-place sneaker brand wished upon a star. Pretty good praise there. The Hollywood Reporter noted the reunion of Damon and Affleck possessed a, quote, kinetic and intimate dynamism that the rest of the film approaches, but doesn't always match. Now, NPR, Aisha Harris, was unconvinced, dismissing the premise as a, quote, craven exercise in capitalist exaltation and calling it at its core a 2-hour ad for Nike. Right?
Little stuffy.
All right. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh, Nike.
The Guardian's Peter Bradshaw was harsher still, describing it as resembling, quote, the most expensive in-house corporate promo in history. Shallow, parochial, and obtuse. I think that's very harsh and pretty unfair, actually. Okay. Now, the screenwriter was Alex Convery. If you've never heard of him, don't worry about it, because this is really the only movie he's ever gotten made so far. He's from Western Illinois. He wrote Air on spec during the early days of COVID after watching an episode of ESPN's The Last Dance, detailing how Nike nearly lost Michael Jordan to Adidas or Converse. He calls himself a sports guy. He grew up in Chicago during the Bulls championship years, and he'd already placed 2 earlier scripts on the blacklist in Hollywood. Do you know what the blacklist is, anyone? Supposedly the best unproduced movies that are circulating or the scripts. So he was still an unproduced writer looking for his break. He wrote the script titled Air Jordan at the time, mostly as a writing exercise, not expecting it to get made. But in 2021, it topped the blacklist. It caught the attention of Mandalay Pictures' Peter Guber, very famous Hollywood producer, along with John Peters, if you may remember John Peters with Barbra Streisand for all. Anyway, the 2 of them were big. So Peter Guber was a big Hollywood executive, eventually landed with Affleck and Damon, and became the debut release of their new production company, Artists Equity. Now, Affleck and Damon and Michael Jordan himself gave extensive input on rewrites, but he kept the sole screenwriting credit. And the reason is Affleck insisted on it to help launch his career. So Air marked his produced feature film debut, and he was subsequently named to Variety's, quote, 10 screenwriters to watch, unquote. So that was back in 2023. Still no other movies. There's a reason. So he's been writing a film adaptation of the 2024 golf book about Tiger Woods called The Tiger Slam. And it's supposed to be coming to Amazon. Hasn't happened, not officially done. He has an untitled project for Stars, a limited series, based on the Shohei Ohtani Interpreter's gambling scandal. If you guys know Shohei Ohtani, a phenomenal Japanese baseball player for now, was the Angels, now the Dodgers. His translator stole over like $20 million from him because the guy had a gambling problem. So that could be an interesting story. And then Fab Five is he was supposedly attached to Mitch Albom's novel for Skydance, but it's unclear if that project is moving forward. So he's had a real niche as a sports story screenwriter, but hasn't actually had another film produced yet. He's still got stuff in development. That's Hollywood. All right, so Matt Damon. Anyone seen Matt Damon's latest film, The Odyssey?
Oh, I want to see it.
No, nobody.
Dying to see it.
So I'm the only one who's seen it. Okay.
It's the only way you think about it. How was it?
It's not Oppenheimer to me. That's his masterpiece, but it's very good. Very good. And Matt Damon, who I originally thought was going to be completely miscast, was actually decent and pretty decent. You know, that's the interesting thing. There's no gore. It's very violent, but there's like no gore, which was a kind of interesting feat.
Wow.
It's very loud. I'm glad I brought earplugs because I needed them. It was as loud as a rock concert.
People talk about that.
Yeah.
It's so loud.
Especially when the horses are tromping and they have the drums beating on the soundtrack. It was like a rock concert. Yeah, I'm glad I had the earplugs. So anyway, and I did see it at the IMAX, but little detail, I will tell you, the IMAX in Palm Beach Gardens is 35 millimeter. It's not the big 70 millimeter. There is a difference. You do notice it. It's still big, but it's not like overwhelming.
So where do you find the 70 million?
I think you probably have to go to Delray or Boca. Not right here. Yeah.
How about the invite?
I heard about that. The invite. It's supposed to be funny, right?
It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard it was fun. Good. But I would recommend it. It's long. It's about 3 hours. Chris Nolan.
What's it called?
The Odyssey.
Oh, no, it's the Odyssey. The other one is
Oh, The Invite. She was saying. The Invite.
Is that good? Yeah,
It's a comedy. I haven't seen it, but yeah, dark comedy, right.
The mother was very clever. I think that was one of the best parts, that she was that clever and changed everything.
Yes, we will definitely be discussing that. So Matt Damon, so he attended Harvard, unlike Affleck, who went to Vermont and then Occidental. He was an English major. He appeared in student theater and took occasional film roles. He had a small part in the movie Mystic Pizza with Julia Roberts while he was still in high school. He didn't finish his degree. He left Harvard in '92. Just 12 credits shy of graduating to pursue his film career in LA alongside Affleck. The screenplay for Good Will Hunting began as a one-act play he wrote for a Harvard course. He and Affleck expanded it, and the pair, then unknown actors, convinced Miramax to let them star in it opposite Robin Williams. The 1997 film earned 9 Oscars, including a Best Actor nomination for Damon, and won Damon and Affleck the Oscar for Best Screenplay. So he followed with Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan. You remember who he played in the movie? He was Private Ryan. So he's the title character, but he has a small role because most of the movie is about getting to him. Spielberg reportedly wanted a relatively unknown actor for the role. He didn't realize Damon would become a star. That same year, he went on to headline The Talented Mr. Ripley, the Ocean's 11 trilogy, and then became an unlikely action star as amnesiac assassin Jason Bourne across 5 films, beginning with The Bourne Identity in 2002. Okay, in Air, he plays Sonny Vaccaro, a real-life Nike basketball talent scout whose conviction that an unproven rookie named Michael Jordan was worth Nike's entire basketball budget. And that's what drove the deal. So he's a scout with nothing left to lose, middle-aged, overweight, restless, and he plays him with rumpled, stubborn conviction rather than movie star polish. Now, Affleck as Phil Knight. Phil Knight was known to be quirky, the head of Nike, and I think you kind of saw that, how Affleck portrayed him in the film. So Affleck cast himself, and he's depicted as a Buddhist-leaning executive prone to running laps around the Nike campus mid-meeting and quoting philosophy. And this leans into Knight's real-life reputation as an unconventional, occasionally inscrutable leader. So he's on screen far less than Matt Damon. But again, he's directing. I'm sure he was quite busy. Jason Bateman as the VP of Marketing, Rob Strasser. I thought he did terrific. He did terrific roles. It's not a huge part, but it's significant. So he's a true child to adult career survivor. Began acting at age 10. Had his breakthrough as a child actor on Little House on the Prairie, followed by Silver Spoons and the Hogan Family. He set a record as one of the youngest directors ever admitted to the Directors Guild of America after directing an episode of the show while a teenager. He built a prolific film career as Hollywood's go-to comedic straight man in films like Juno, Horrible Bosses, and Game Night, which was a pretty fascinating movie if you ever saw Game Night. And he's frequently opposite Jennifer Aniston. So he became big on TV with Netflix's Ozark, powerful series playing a morally compromised financial advisor. He won a Primetime Emmy for outstanding directing for a drama series for his work on that. Here he plays Rob Strasser, Nike's real-life marketing VP, who, alongside Vaccaro, championed the risky pursuit of Jordan and pushed the company's leadership to bet everything on a single unproven rookie. Now, Viola Davis as Dolores Jordan, Michael Jordan's mom. Davis grew up in, oh, by the way, the guy who plays Michael Jordan's father in real life is Viola Davis's husband. So they played husband and wife, and they were husband and wife. So she grew up in poverty in Rhode Island, discovered her love of performance in high school. She trained at Rhode Island College and later the Juilliard School, and made her Broadway debut in 1996's 7 Guitars. She won Tony Awards for King Hedley and the Broadway revival of Fences in 2010. Her film breakthrough was the film Doubt. Terrific movie if you ever saw Doubt.
Yeah.
About a priest who has doubts, or doubts about a priest, actually. And then a second one for the movie The Help, also a terrific film. In 2015, she became the first Black actress to win the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series for ABC's How to Get Away with Murder. She won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 2016 for reprising her role as Rose Maxon in the film adaptation of Fences opposite Denzel Washington. She's won a Grammy Award for Best Audiobook for narration and storytelling recording for her memoir, Finding Me.
What is it?
It's a storybook, an audiobook called Finding Me, her memoir. And she's only the 4th Black person, roughly the 18th overall, to achieve EGOT status. Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award. So in the movie, Michael Jordan's mother is the person whose business instincts and insistence on a percentage of every shoe sold reshaped the entire economics of athletic endorsements. Michael Jordan himself met with Affleck beforehand and specifically requested Viola Davis be cast as his mother. And actually, if you see pictures of the two, there's kind of a similarity. I mean, they did the makeup and everything, but it's not too far off in the way they looked. And he wanted the role of the mother expanded from the original script. Critics, even those who were not favorable of the film, singled out Davis's performance as its strongest element. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian, who I said kind of panned the film, wrote that she brought, quote, more charisma and force than the rest of the cast put together. And it's an underhanded compliment, but whatever. Chris Tucker played Howard White, another guy at Nike. And I thought he was good. Had a light part in the beginning, then comes in a little bit towards the end. And he's a stand-up comedian. He's a funny guy. He didn't have that much to do here, but he was
What
funny.
he did
Is he
well.
the
Yeah,
designer?
exactly. What he did well. Well said. And yeah, so for you on Zoom, you can't see it. You can only see actually less than half the room. There's about, I think, 16, 17 people here, maybe 18. So you may hear them, but you may not see them. So his breakout was 1997 in 3 films that year: The Fifth Element as a radio DJ, Money Talks opposite Charlie Sheen, and the Quentin Tarantino film Jackie Brown. Terrific. And he became a global star when he was paired with Jackie Chan in Rush Hour. That made him huge, and that was a trilogy of films that grossed more than $850 million worldwide. His Rush Hour 3 salary made him one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood at the time. And he was also in Silver Linings Playbook with a dramatic role. So he plays a real-life Nike executive and close friend of Michael Jordan's, a role added to the film specifically at Jordan's personal request, since White remains one of the most trusted associates in Jordan's life. Now, one of the great cameos, I thought, of supporting actor parts was Chris Messina as David Falk, the sports agent, who swears at Matt Damon on the phone, like repeatedly. Most of that was ad-lib. So Matt Damon had to react in real time to what he wasn't sure he was going to be hearing, and he had to figure it out.
That was quite a scene.
So there was a couple of scenes like that. Yeah, it was pretty good. And David Falk, I have to give a thank you to, because he endowed the Falk School of Entrepreneurship at Syracuse University, my alma mater. And I have friends' kids who have attended or are attending there. But as you saw, he's a lonely guy. He sold his business for $100 million, but there he was having dinner by himself. But he did play Michael Jordan's real-life sports agent. He's depicted as combative and dismissive toward Nike's pursuit of his client through much of the film, creating a lot of the conflict and comic tension. He's a respected character actor who was in Argo, which is obviously where Ben Affleck said, "Oh, let's bring Chris back." And also Sharp Objects and a movie in 2020 called Birds of Prey. Now, another interesting character, Marlon Wayans, played George Raveling, the real-life assistant coach of the 1984 U.S. Olympics, who first urged Michael Jordan to consider signing with Nike. And they don't say it here, but Raveling went on to be, or maybe he already was, coach at either Iowa or Iowa State. I can't remember which one. But he had a real-life friendship with Vaccaro, and that helped drive the plot. And you remember the conflict he had about the conversation he had about the speech that he heard and then that he kept? That's real.
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, he still has it.
Wow.
So anyway, his influence was so big on Jordan that Michael Jordan specifically asked that his role in the film be included because it was that important. So behind the scenes, besides the George Raveling and Howard White, he had the character of Tinker Hatfield removed. That was a person who worked at Nike at the time, but he was not involved in the creation of the Air Jordan shoe at all. And Jordan wanted the history to be accurate, so he said, don't put him in. He wanted the role of his parents expanded, specifically with Viola Davis, and he credited her as instrumental in his real decision to sign with Nike. Now, Affleck and Damon made uncredited revisions to the script to accommodate these requests. Jordan's involvement, now here's the controversy, lends the film a layer of authenticity, but also invites the criticism raised by some of the reviewers that a story so closely shepherded by its most powerful real-life subject was always going to be flattering. Okay, that's true. There's a documentary that we had a discussion on here. You may remember the Billy Joel one, where Billy Joel was very involved. I thought it was a great film until I did a little research, and I still think it was a great long film, but like 2 parts, 6 hours total. But the part of why he actually broke up with Christy Brinkley was not in that movie. And it's because he was already having an affair, and so she threw him out. They somehow omitted that from the movie because I guess he didn't want it in.
What's
So,
the name? That's the story of
The Billy Joel movie, I don't remember. Yeah. So, okay. Anyone have any questions or comments at this point? Ann, Fred, you guys, anyone? Barry? No? Oh, Barry, you have something?
He's muted.
I'm good,
There you go.
okay?
You okay? Okay.
But I just said though, last night I saw there's a documentary from ESPN that they did on Sunny. And it goes,
ESPN documentary you saw?
I'm sorry,
Sorry, we're having a hard time. I don't know how to do the volume on this, so I'm sorry.
Oh. There was an ESPN documentary that I watched last night, which takes on his life after he left Nike. And he goes to Adidas, and then he goes to, I think, Reebok. And his big signing after that was Kobe Bryant.
Hold on 1 second. Maybe Andrew can get the volume higher. Oh, there it is on the bottom. Yeah. Go ahead. All right, try now, Barry.
After he leaves Nike, he gets fired by Nike. He goes to Reebok, and then I think to Adidas, or vice versa. And his big signing is Kobe Bryant. It's a good documentary if anybody wants to see it.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear all of it. He just went to several different shoe companies. Oh, you're talking about Vaquero, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yep. I have that. Yep. Thank you. Yep. I will cover that. Okay, cool. Yep. So Sonny Vaccaro. Yes, Marty.
It's something that people may not know. I taught at a high school in Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
Long time. And the kids would not wear their shoes home. Jordans. They put them in their book bag.
Because they're afraid they
Their
get
shoes
stolen.
on. Just like they couldn't wear their jacket that said Science High School on it because their neighborhood didn't. So I didn't know that until I saw them taking them off at the end. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I can't wear these outside." So for $285 when they paid, or $275, they didn't wear them, except sometimes they left them in their locker for the week and took them home on Friday in their book bag.
Wow.
Because they'd wear them in school all day and leave them in their locker and go home. But it's a problem that they had with their shoes because it was very expensive.
Right. They were expensive. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Big problem. But
Wow. Fascinating. Okay. Yeah. So you didn't want to get robbed. Okay. Okay. My notes. I noted about the soundtrack starting with Money for Nothing, and then Blister in the Sun, the Violent Femmes kind of alternative new wave song, which is an interesting song. I'm not sure why they chose it. Maybe, I guess, because it was cheap to get the rights or something, but it's a song about a guy realizing he may be gay. That's really what the song is about. I don't know how it had relevance in this, but that's kind of interesting. They showed here's the beef commercial, other cultural touchstones. So Matt Damon scouts. We see him seeing high school basketball players. He goes to Las Vegas, wins on sports bets, but blows it on craps, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then they show the graphic of the 1984 market share with Converse at over 50%, Adidas at almost 30%, and Nike in third at only 17%. Converse had Magic and Bird, and Run DMC did a song about Adidas. Nothing about Nike, which was at the time focused on being a running shoe. Big market, and they were $1 billion company, but focused really on running. So the kids who played basketball didn't want to have Nike. And as we heard, Michael Jordan wore Adidas all the time. So we hear the origins of the Just Do It slogan. You guys remember the origins where that came from? It's in the movie. There was kind of a little throwaway line. The actual Just Do It came from a guy who was about to be executed, and he said, "You have any last words?" And his last words were, "Just do it." True story. And they threw it in the movie. It's just a little fun line. Okay. Damon's character is forced to a limit of $250,000 for 3 names. He doesn't think he can get Jordan because he's supposedly loving Adidas. There were some jokes about John Stockton being from Gonzaga, where someone says, "What is that, a vocational school?" Before it became a very big, well-known basketball school. Because the key to the film happens 20 minutes in, when Sonny Vaccaro is watching a videotape of Michael Jordan making the championship shot as a freshman. And he's watching it and studying it over and over. And then he realizes what he's watching. You guys remember what it was? The key thing of what he saw when he was watching.
Just standing there, relaxed, waiting for the ball.
Relaxed.
Right. But the other part of it was the play was actually designed
For
for
him.
him.
Oh, yeah.
And he was the freshman,
Yeah,
not
we got-
James Worthy, who was the upperclassman who had a lot more experience. They could have given it to him. He was a star, became a big star with the Lakers too. But Dean Smith,
Get him the ball.
who hadn't won a title, he was 0 for 3 at the time, in the championship game, gives the ball to the freshman.
Well, he wasn't covered
He
either.
wasn't covered, right?
Right, because he was a freshman.
Freshman.
So that was his play, and it worked. So, yeah. So, and then we learned more about Adidas, where the name came from, which is kind of interesting.
It's us.
Adolf Das, Adi, for short, Adi Das. But apparently, I don't know if this is true. I meant to check it and I forgot that he was supposedly in the Hitler Youth when he was a child. Kind of interesting. So, Matt Damon's character, Sonny Vaccaro, was kind of using that, talking to Viola Davis. And also the fact he had just died and there was going to be confusion as to who was really running Adidas. So he asked Viola Davis, Mrs. Jordan, to ask them who makes the decisions for Adidas,
They started our.
knowing it would be a conflict and confusion, which he could use, which was positive. So,
That was that whole sequence was great where she was sitting there and she looked over at the Rolex on the wrist.
yep, which
Which is
he
exactly what he
predicted was
said.
going to do. Right, exactly. And then we get introduced to Chris Messina as the ruthless but very funny agent. And Sonny talks to the mom and predicts what was going to be said. And that's basically right there. That's what happened. Okay, now, some of the critics, Richard Roper, again, gave it 4 stars out of 4. Crackling good screenplay, sure-handed period piece direction. He compared the film's pacing to an NBA Finals game destined for overtime. Variety called it this generation's Jerry Maguire, the ultimate example of the American dream, a funny, touching Cinderella story. Hollywood Reporter called it affectionate and involving, noting the film is worth seeing for its starry cast alone, particularly seeing Damon and Affleck. Okay, now, let's see, how are we on time? Okay, pretty good. So, do you guys see this as a corporate advertisement or as just an actual underdog story?
Underdog.
Underdog?
Sonny Vaccaro was a very interesting character.
Yeah.
Really, how he felt something special about this kid. And I mean, he had the nerve to go to North Carolina unannounced,
Right.
and he's very
Well,
lucky.
he didn't call. He promised he
Right.
wouldn't call. He was
Right.
told
That would be rude.
But then Mrs. Jordan, didn't turn him away.
Right.
I mean, he was so persistent. It's a great story about persistence.
Yes.
I think, because his company wasn't really. I didn't get the feeling they were a $1 billion company.
I think barely, but yeah, but still, but worldwide because they
Yeah.
were the
I
runners.
guess that's not worldwide, because it didn't seem like they were doing so well. And then what Michael Jordan did for them, everything that Mrs. Jordan said about her son came true.
Yep.
How special he was and what he was going to do for them.
Right.
And she was some businesswoman. The
Right.
deal that she made.
Very
Very
close. Yep.
Did Nike have money in it? Film?
I did not see that. It's a good question.
Because
I don't know.
in the absence of that, I would call it an inadvertent advertisement.
Yeah.
Because I think it was a very feel good movie, and
Yeah.
you couldn't help feeling good about Nike after seeing it.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I mean, it did show some warts in the company, some dysfunction.
right. No, but just
You
they went after it. They
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
ended up believing and going, and it turned out great for them.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
beyond.
What I thought was interesting? Ben Affleck's character and what he turned out to be, because Matt Damon's character, Sonny, explained to Mrs. Jordan when she asked for revenue from every shoot that it's a public company, that's just not the way it is.
Right.
And then he went to the CEO who didn't come off very impressive, really. And he's the one, he said, let's do it. That was a surprise that he was the one.
Right.
Don't you think?
Right.
That was a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Ann.
That's me. Ed, you're in marketing, so I'm sure you love this story.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna have to get closer so I can hear, and then I'll repeat it for everybody. Because I don't know what there's something going on with the volume, and I don't know how to fix it. I'm sorry. So go ahead.
I said you love this movie because you're in marketing, but I remember how I got shoes when I was a kid, and it was about comfort and cost and looks. My mother never bought me shoes based on any athlete, so I think this is really a knock on this movie. Really has a negative connotation on hero worship, American capitalism, and marketing. I just looked at this as a real negative film, not just the story. I mean, the story is cool.
So Fred looked at it as a negative film. He thinks I like it because I'm in marketing, but he says it's about capitalism, that being a negative essentially.
Why is it
But
negative?
it's an underdog story, Fred. It's an underdog story.
Yeah.
How they signed the third team, was able to sign the number one guy. Yes, Marty.
If they didn't get him, or he didn't work out,
No,
there was
that's right.
a scene where Matt Damon came into the room with all the people are working, and he's saying to himself, "Well, I thought all you guys are going if this doesn't go through."
Yeah.
And I felt really that he was under a lot of pressure, right?
Mhm.
In that, I mean, that's what I got from that scene.
Right, because if they didn't get that deal,
They're gone.
everyone else was going to be signed.
Basketball is,
They were done for the year.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Too much red.
Yeah, the specs were so carefully described. Well, of course, that's all different now. If you watch a game, that everyone's wearing different colored shoes, it's all different. But
Yeah.
at the time, this was a big breaker. And the funny part was where there was a $5,000 fine per game. And he said, "Well, pay it." And he just kind of tells Phil Knight, "Well, we're going to pay it." It's like, wait a minute, what?
Did that really happen? Do we know?
Supposedly that did actually happen, yeah. I think they changed it during the first season. So they paid several fines and then it stopped. They just said, okay, whatever.
I thought it was interesting that it showed at one point this whole sole, the bottom of the shoe was red.
Yes.
I thought maybe they were trying to have red and have it
Hidden,
so
hidden, yeah.
right.
Right. Nope. So, okay. So, all right. So calling it, a corporate ad or a genuine understanding, both critiques have merit. The tension is noticeable. The film was made with Michael Jordan's blessing and input. He shaped the casting and story details before it was even shot. So that's a legitimate reason for skepticism. But at the same time, the underlying story is struggling third place shoe company betting its entire division on an unproven rookie because one scout saw something everyone else missed. General emotional stakes, independent of whether Nike comes off well. So at least it's an honest story about commerce, not hagiography of Michael Jordan. And okay. So if the film had cast an actor to play a fully realized Jordan, it would have either had to have flattened him into an icon we already know or humanized him in ways that risk feeling presumptuous, since a real, very much alive global superstar was watching. The absence keeps the story about the risk, the human beings gambling everything on a hunch, much like Matt Damon was a gambler, rather than about Jordan's own inner life, which isn't really the subject anyway. Okay. So it's a story about basketball, but it's also about, you don't really see basketball being played in the film. I mean, you see some clips, but you don't really see it.
Mhm.
So the absence of basketball is the point. The film is about belief, risk-taking, and the negotiating table, closer in spirit to a heist movie or a courtroom drama, I could see that, than a sports movie. So the tension comes from the boardroom pitches, the phone calls, the mother's negotiating instincts, not from anything happening on a court. Okay. Variety's comparison to Jerry Maguire is apt because that film too was not about football, but really about ethics and ambition in the business surrounding the sport. Okay. So I mentioned about the film was written by Convery. He got the idea watching a segment about the Nike Jordan deal in the ESPN documentary, The Last Dance. He researched the story, put the script on spec, and it was originally intended as a streaming-only release exclusive to Amazon Prime. But following strong test screening results, Amazon reversed their decision and gave it a full theatrical release, the first time they had done so since 2019's Late Night. Now, they spent an estimated 40 to 50 million marketing the film, including a reported $7 million for a 30-second ad during Super Bowl, February 2023. A big investment for a film with modest box office ambitions. The soundtrack drew from a 100-plus song Spotify playlist personally curated by Ben Affleck that he simply called 1984. I don't know if you could still find it, but maybe you could take a look. Jordan met with Affleck before filming, made 4 specific requests about the script, all of which were honored, including expanding the parents' role and getting Viola Davis as the mother. In June 2023, footage from Matt Damon's climactic monologue in the film was repurposed without authorization in a Donald Trump campaign fundraising video on Truth Social, with references to Michael Jordan edited out. Affleck and Damon's production company publicly condemned the unauthorized use. Air opened in theaters the same weekend as Superman in April 2023, a mismatched box office battle, but the smaller adult drama had no chance of winning, but it still performed respectively, finished 3rd that weekend. And let's see. The film had its broadcast TV premiere in 2024, airing as a bridge program to fill a gap between games 2 and 3 of the NBA Finals. Oh, here it is. The real Sonny Vaccaro later worked with Adidas and Reebok as well and became a prominent advocate for paying college athletes, a cause that eventually contributed to the modern NIL, name, image, likeness reforms, where the college athletes now get compensated for it. And let's see. So Peter Moore, the actual designer of the Air Jordan logo and the silhouette, died in April 22, just 3 weeks before filming began. He'd left Nike, interestingly enough, in 1987 to join Adidas, where he went on to redesign Adidas's iconic logo. The, quote, who really named it Air Jordan, quote, controversy, which was a real historical debate over whether David Falk, Jordan's agent, or Peter Moore, the designer, came up with the name. Apparently, they both came up with the name, and Affleck didn't know who came up with it first, so he kind of made it that they both men arrived at it at the same time. Now, in real life, David Falk was actually more helpful than the movie suggests. The real one really reportedly helped convince Jordan to take the meeting with Nike in the first place, but for dramatic purposes, they used a little poetic license on that and changed it. Now, the Christmas scene, I told you, the furious phone rant was improvised. The profanity-laced tirade he unloads on Vaccaro was not fully scripted, and Matt Damon really did have to react and improvise on the spot in response. It's called enforced method acting. Affleck wanted Duran Duran and Eurythmics on the soundtrack, but they couldn't afford the licensing. It would have pushed the film over budget. The tagline, the film was promoted in some materials as Air, courting a legend. Courting. Okay. So Vaccaro was ultimately fired from Nike in 1991, right during the company's big rise. And his quote was, "They did well after that, but I also did well after I left."
Why was he fired?
You know, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. Couldn't see why he was fired.
He
It's a
did
good
the whole
question.
thing. They fired him.
Well, this was 84. He did this, lasted for 7 years. In 91, they fired him. The time Knight spent at each educational institution, respectively, had pivotal influences on his career success in real life. His athletic involvement at the University of Oregon, he was a runner, introduced him to track and field club coach Bill Bowerman. Bill Bowerman would end up co-founding Nike with him. His studies at Stanford sparked his interest in selling running shoes, leading to his discovery of the brand. He said, I took a class, this is, by the way, he gave an interview to People magazine. He said, I took a class in entrepreneurship and wrote a paper that the US shoe market was being dominated by German shoe companies, Adidas and Puma. He was obviously talking about running shoes. Knight explained on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, it didn't make sense to me that you make shoes in Germany, leading to his research paper titled, Can Japanese Sport Shoes Do to German Shoes What Japanese Cameras Did to German Cameras? Upon graduating, he took a trip to Japan to call in a shoe company. He secured distribution rights from Tiger Shoe Company for the Western United States while he was there. When he received his first samples about a year after placing the order, he sent 2 pairs to Bill Bowerman. Quote, "My old track coach was always experimenting with shoes," Knight said of Bowerman ahead of his Japanese travels, noting that his early relationship with him, quote, "planted a seed," unquote, in what blossomed into an unimaginable partnership that evolved the athletic footwear industry. Nike was originally called Blue Ribbon Sports at the time of when they first came up with the idea in 1964. In 1971, they changed it after the Greek winged goddess of victory. As for the swoosh design, an eager graphic design student at Portland State University named Carolyn Davidson is credited for its creation. There was a brief throwaway line in the film where he says he bought the logo for $35 from a student. She should have gotten royalties, right? According to Nike's website, Knight said of the swoosh at the time, "Well, I don't love it, but it'll grow on me." I think his bank account grew faster. He said once they became big and went public, they gave Carolyn Davidson 500 shares of stock. She hasn't sold a single share. It's now worth $1 million. Okay, so she did get something. In 2015, Knight and Nike announced he would step down as the chairman, though he came out of retirement in 2017. Since then, he published the memoir Shoe Dog and has been involved in numerous other sports-related projects and philanthropic endeavors. Affleck's quote on not having Jordan in the movie: "I thought the minute I turned the camera on somebody and asked the audience to believe that person was Michael Jordan, the whole movie falls apart. When somebody's that powerful, where just their silhouette is a globally recognized phenomenon, you lose people." However, Jordan gave Affleck his blessing ahead of embarking on his latest project and even put in the requests. He put together the list of, quote, "what I care about," unquote, and shared it with the director. So Affleck said at a screening of Air in advance of the release, he said, "We just worked and worked and worked. And then I went to Viola. I was like, look, you probably don't want to do this, but Michael Jordan wants you to." That was how he closed. So that's pretty cool. Okay. So, all right, we're coming up on the end of the hour. So would you guys recommend this movie? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Any dissenting thoughts?
Question for you.
No? Yes.
Question for you. When you applied to a couple of universities for the semi-professorship that you have, were they universities that had business schools? Because
You mean when I went to school?
No, when you recently have become a member of the faculty.
Oh, I'm just an instructor at the Lifelong Learning Center.
Because you should go quite a bit further than that as a, no, seriously,
Well,
as
thank
a
you.
professor, particularly professor of marketing.
Okay.
Yeah, right? I mean,
I've given many guest lectures on marketing to college students.
you
I've done
have.
that often.
Sure.
Thank you. Yep. So, how do you think this movie compares to other based on a true sports story or business films like Moneyball? If you ever saw that, very good film about baseball with Brad Pitt, The Social Network, or Jerry Maguire. Think it holds up? Okay. Nancy, what? More realistic than Jerry? That's fair. Yeah, I think that's true. Yes.
That's the sentence of Jerry Maguire, which is still prevalent now, is follow the money.
Show me
the money.
Show me the money. That's Jerry Maguire. So does knowing Michael Jordan personally shape the script change how you view the film's portrayal of actual events?
Person who said that he had to be there, because truthfully, I didn't see the story. I mean, yes, he was a central figure, but the story was really based more on a company and making this.
Right, the story was more based on the company than him.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think if he was in it, he would take away
Right.
from it.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna stop it now and then you guys can vote. So 1 second. So No, they will, but I just want to stop the recording. Okay, hold on one second. Thank you.
Have you been here before? Have you been here?